The night was thick with silence, the kind that smothers a suburban neighborhood at 3:12 a.m. In a modest Florida home, the digital clock on 17-year-old Ethan Caldwell's nightstand glowed a soft, eerie red. The house was supposed to be still, wrapped in the predictable hum of air conditioning and the distant chirp of crickets. But 3 sharp knocks shattered that peace, deliberate, unapologetic, like someone knew the family was asleep and didn't care. Ethan stirred, his brain sluggish, unsure if the sound was real. Then came a second knock, louder, more insistent, slicing through the haze of sleep and jolting his heart into overdrive. This wasn't right. Not in their quiet cul-de-sac, where the worst crime was a neighbor's unmowed lawn. He sat up, pulse racing, straining to hear. Silence. Then a crash downstairs, something heavy, ceramic or glass, smashed against the floor, followed by a muffled thud, as if someone had brushed a wall in the dark. Ethan's feet hit the carpet, adrenaline flooding his veins. Half a second later, his bedroom door creaked, and his 10-year-old sister, Mia, slipped inside like a shadow. Her pajamas were rumpled, her eyes wide with a fear Ethan had never seen in her before, all primal. She didn't speak at first, just crawled toward him, clutching the doorframe like it was her lifeline. "They're at the back door," she whispered, voice barely a breath. "3 guys. I saw them from the upstairs window. They've got orange badges, clipboards, radios." Ethan blinked, trying to process. "HOA officials? At this hour?" Mia shook her head, her voice trembling. "One of them had a crowbar. He was hiding it, but I saw." The words landed like ice, chilling Ethan to his core. The HOA was a nuisance, letters about mailbox colors, fines for overgrown hedges, but they didn't prowl backyards with tools meant for breaking in. Something was horribly wrong. From the hallway, faint murmurs drifted up, voices too calm, too controlled for a midnight mix-up. Ethan crept toward the stairs, every nerve screaming to move faster, but his legs felt heavy, like wading through water. Before he could decide what to do, his father, Mark Caldwell, appeared in the hallway. A retired Navy SEAL, Mark carried himself with a quiet intensity, the kind that didn't need words to command a room. One look at Ethan's face, alert, scared, uncertain, and something shifted in Mark's eyes. Not panic, not confusion, but recognition. A flicker of the man who'd faced threats in places most only saw on newsreels. Without a word, he glanced toward the back of the house, where the murmurs grew clearer, more deliberate. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Mark moved to the master bedroom, his steps silent, measured. Ethan followed, barely breathing, afraid to disrupt the sudden stillness that seemed to cloak his father. In the walk-in closet, Mark opened a biometric gun safe with a practiced touch. The soft click echoed in the quiet. Inside, an AR-15 rested among other tools of a past life, arranged with surgical precision. Mark pulled it out, checked it, loaded it, chambered a round, all in silence. Ethan watched, frozen. He'd seen his dad grill steaks, fix bikes, laugh at Mia's bad jokes. But this Mark was different, not angry, not afraid, just focused, like the world had narrowed to a single point. Mark turned, his voice low, steady. "Stay behind me. If they come through, we don't talk. We end it." The words weren't a threat, just a fact, delivered with the weight of a man who knew how fast things could spiral from bad to catastrophic. Ethan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Downstairs, the air grew heavy-wire. A deliberate scrape of footsteps over tile, a shuffle, then a voice too polished, too rehearsed. "We've had complaints about your landscaping. We need to inspect the side entrance." The tone made Ethan's stomach twist, like it had been practiced in front of a mirror. He edged to the guest room window, staying low, and peeked through the blind. 3 men, late 20s, maybe early 30s, stood outside. No uniforms, just cargo pants, mismatched vests, and orange tags clipped to their belts, cheap, like something from a costume shop. One held a clipboard, another a radio. The third, the biggest, wore gloves, and under a folded pamphlet, barely hidden, was a crowbar. These weren't inspectors. They were predators, and their act was fraying at the edges. Mark was already halfway down the stairs, moving like a ghost, fluid and silent. Ethan followed, hard hammering, avoiding creaky floorboards. The back door handle rattled, followed by a soft tap on the glass, then a metallic click and a groan from the frame. They were forcing it. Mark took position in the hallway's shadows, weapon lowered but ready. His stance was a warning, a line drawn in the dark. Then, clear and cold, his voice cut through. Last warning? The words carried no anger, only finality, the kind that didn't need to be loud to stop time itself. Outside, one man froze, his gaze darting toward the house, unable to see Mark in the shadows. For a moment, everything held its breath. Then he moved fast, aggressive, shoving the door open and stepping inside. That was the mistake. The man crossed the threshold, shoulders squared, clipboard still in hand, as if it could shield him. Mark didn't hesitate. He raised the rifle and fired once, not at the intruder, but up. The shot tore into the ceiling, the muzzle flash igniting the room like a lightning strike. Plaster dust rained down, and the sound deafening in the quiet home froze the world. Down! Face on the ground! Mark ordered, his voice a blade, sharp and unyielding. The man flinched, dropped the clipboard, and bolted outside, slipping on the wet deck, vanishing into the night. But the second man was already moving, ducking low, a handgun glinting in his grip. No clipboard, no pretense, just intent. Ethan, crouched on the stairs, saw the weapon first, his breath catching. Mark didn't speak. 2 shots rang out, controlled, precise. The first hit the man's shoulder, twisting him sideways with a grunt. The second struck his leg, dropping him to the kitchen tile. His gun skidded under a chair, and he let out a sound half pain, half disbelief, like he couldn't fathom picking the wrong house. Ethan couldn't move, his eyes locked on the scene, the open door, the fallen man, the dust still settling. Mark stood steady, not triumphant, just ready, scanning for the next threat. Still 2 out there, he said quietly. Don't move. Ethan's heart pounded, but something else stirred awareness, clarity. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. Then, a flicker at the dining room window caught his eye. The third man, the lookout, was circling, seizing the chaos to try another entry. Ethan waited for Mark to notice, to act, but Mark was focused on the kitchen, weapon trained. There was no time. Ethan's feet moved before his brain caught up. He crossed the landing, bounded downstairs, and grabbed the fire poker from the fireplace, gold, heavy steel. The window creaked open, fingers prying, then a hand. Ethan swung. The poker crashed into the glass, shattering it with a force that surprised even him. A muffled yell followed, and the figure stumbled back, swallowed by the darkness. Ethan stood, chest heaving, the poker trembling in his hands. Behind him, Mark turned at the noise, his eyes finding Ethan in the chaos. For a moment, something passed between them, not surprise, but recognition. Ethan wasn't just his son anymore. He was someone who'd stood the line. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, blue and red lights flooding the street. Neighbors stirred, curtains twitched, dogs barked. Mark laid the rifle on the dining table, chamber open, safety on, and stepped back, hands raised. When police stormed in, he was calm. Inside. I'm unarmed, he called. 2 intruders injured. 1 fled east. Officers secured the scene, finding the second man stabilized by Mark's quick first-aid dish towel tied tight. The third, dazed by Ethan's blow, was cuffed near the fence. The fourth, the lookout, had vanished into the woods, AK-9 unit losing his trail. Ethan sat on the couch, the poker beside him, the weight of the night sinking in. A young officer asked gentle questions, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment he swung, the moment he chose to act. The intruders weren't HOA officials. Their badges were fake, their clipboards props, their script a rehearsed lie. They were criminals, recently released, targeting homes with the illusion of authority, banking on fear and compliance. But they'd chosen the wrong house. Mark and Ethan hadn't just stopped a break-in. They'd exposed a scheme terrorizing counties. Headlines erupted: fake inspectors foiled by SEAL father, son. HOA groups scrambled, issuing new ID protocols and tip lines. Neighbors whispered, some praising Mark's resolve, others uneasy about the gunfire in their safe suburb. Was he a hero or a vigilante? The debate raged online, splitting forums and fueling talk shows. Mark gave one interview, his voice steady. They broke in. My family came first. He didn't chase the spotlight. For him, it was about Mia sleeping soundly, about Ethan stepping up, about a house still standing. 3 days later, the DA ruled, no charges. Self-defense, clear as day. Mark and Ethan patched the ceiling, the small bullet hole a quiet reminder. That night, Mark grilled steaks, handing Ethan a soda with a simple, "You did good." No fanfare, just truth. The neighborhood resumed its rhythm: sprinklers, barbecues, normalcy. But for Ethan, everything had changed. He'd seen his father draw a line, not just as a soldier, but as a father, and he'd crossed his own line, from boy to something more. The story faded from the news, but its echo lingered. Behind the neat lawns and wind chimes, a different strength waited, silent, unyielding, ready to hold the line when EVYL knocked.